Hello everyone, we are glad to see you in our first presentation. Today me and my groupmate talks about what's the consequentialism. I will talk about types of consequentialism and classic utilitarianism and what's the consequentialism. Act consequentialism is argued that act is morally right. Summary of the argument, we can say that the most happiness for the most numbers, but sometimes this statement can be wrong because act can increase the number of happiness but cannot maximize the net good. Classic utilitarianism identified as a consequentialist. Classic utilitarianism denies whether the agent has promised in the past to take action now. Moreover, for classic utilitarianism, the future effects of action on the other people are more important than agent has promised in the past. Classic utilitarianism is a complex combination of claims. Firstly, in the consequentialism, the correctness of action morally depends on the actual consequences. Direct consequentialism depends on the act itself. Inadequate consequentialism depends on the value of the consequences. Maximizing consequentialism depends on the best consequences. Aggregative consequentialism, which results are the best, is a function of the values of the parts of those results. Total consequentialism depends total net good. Universal consequentialism depends consequentialism for all consideration in determining moral right benefits one person to another person. Agent neutrality, whether some results are better than others, does not depend on whether the results were evaluated from the agent points of view, and these claims are accepted by utilitarianism. Secondly, what's the consequentialism? I will give information about that. The main question which moral theorists accepted consequentialism and why. Firstly, there is some normative properties, and these properties depend only on consequences. If this argument denied so, it means theory is not consequentialist. Some philosophers accept a definition that does require a moral theory to be independent agent in order to be consequentialist. And if the definition of consequentialism gets too broad, it may appear to losing power. In the end, it is the only what theory a particular commentator considered consequentialism. Now I would like to give my floor my group mates. Thank you for your attention. See you in
Hello everyone, my name is Aysun Rızazade. Now I will talk about what is good, hedonistic and pluralistic consequentialism. Hedonism is not simple as other people assume because it counts both pleasure and pain. Some contemporaries of Beethoven Mill argued that hedonism lowers the quality of human life to the level of animal. Mill distinguished higher and lower quality of pleasures according to preference of people who experience both kinds. This qualitative hedonism has been subjected to much criticism and it is not counted as hedonism. Qualitative hedonism still might not seem plausible because some critics argue that not all pleasures are valuable. These points against hedonism are supplemented with the experience machine found in Nozick. People on this machine get much pleasure if their beliefs were true and they feel no pain. A related position on the claim is that what is good is desire satisfaction. What is desire is not sensation, but rather it is state of affairs. Utilitarians who adopt the theory of value say that an agent do an act if this act maximizes its desire satisfaction. This position is called preference utilitarianism. One problem of preference utilitarianism is to make interpersonal comparisons. We cannot ask people to determine whether one person's preference is stronger or weaker because these people choose differently in decisive conflict. Utilitarians and consequentialists have proposed many ways to solve this problem. However, each attempt has received criticism. More consequentialists adopt a pluralistic theory of value, and other consequentialists add interesting value of love, friendship, and so on. If recognized values concern individual welfare, the resulting theory can be called welfareist. When welfareist theory of value is combined with the element of utilitarianism, resulting theory can be called welfareist consequentialism.
Hello, I'm Masuda Marava, and I'm continuing to present what is good hedonistic versus pluralistic consequentialism, and I will mainly focus on pluralistic consequentialism. One non-welfarist theory of value is perfectionism, which claims that certain states make a person's life good without necessarily being good for a person. in any way that increases that person's welfare. Perfectionism theory, together with other elements of classic utilitarianism, is called perfectionist consequentialism or eudaimonistic consequentialism. Moreover, some consequentialists hold that an act is right if and only if it maximizes some function of both happiness and capabilities, or one holds that an act is right if and only if it maximizes the respect for some certain moral rights. All these theories are called the utilitarianism of rights. Some consequentialists argue that one goal is not sufficient to capture what we mean by goal. These consequentialists are called pluralists, and they claim that we are not trying to maximize a particular good, but rather than several goods. This allows them to avoid the claim that consequentialists can't claim lying or going against someone's rights is always wrong, since it may increase overall happiness. Pluralism about values also allows consequentialists to handle many problems that plague hedonistic utilitarianism. Some consequentialists forswear the aggregation of values instead of turning pluralist. There is one important point here, that is Moore's principle of organic unity, which indicates that the value of organic unity of two or more things cannot be calculated simply by adding the values of things that are combined or unified. For example, a consequentialist can hold that a world with both the crime and the punishment is better than a world with the crime but not the punishment, even if punishment causes pain. Such cases make consequentialists compare all consequences that result from an action with the consequences that result from not doing that action. So if the former is better, then the action is morally right. This approach can be called holistic consequentialism or world utilitarianism. Last point I want to mention here is a negative utilitarianism, which indicates that an act is morally wrong if and only if its consequences contain more pain than an alternative one, regardless of positive values.
Hello everyone, I am Lala Musaiva, and today I want to talk about actual and accepted consequentialisms. First of all, I want to talk about actual consequentialisms. The actual consequentialism is there is the meaning that we generally do not know for the sure whether we can action the want to take the is morally correct before the real results occur. And what is accepted consequentialisms? Everything that an idealized observed of the action with the best information available at that time and places can available reasonable predict will be bought by the actions. Also, classical utilitarianisms must calculate the consequences of every human action. It seems impossible. It has been suggested by philosophers as well. One of them is Bentham's. He says that everyone. He says that it is possible. It's not possible to think seriously about the progress until the moral. However, Mill agreed in this point. He says that everyone should take into account both society and whole world when coming to an agreement. Of course, there are those who think the opposite and the moral and effective side of the movement. The principle of the general necessity decided which decisions are morally correct. In conclusion, I want to say, consequently, the moral theories of the focus on the actual or objective, the probable consequences are often decided by objective consequentialisms. Thank you for listening. Now my groupmate Vugar will continue.
Everyone, I am Vugar Niftaliev. First of all, in order to understand the positions of different consequentialists, it is important to consider an example. Let's suppose that in the hospital there are 5 patients who need transplantation of different organs in order to survive, and 1 patient visited to the hospital for checkup. For example, utilitarians will argue that it would be morally right to kill 1 patient who visited to the hospital for an ordinary checkup to save 5 lives. The other consequentialist would determine whether killing 1 patient is morally right based on the consequences, namely whether the life of 5 patients were saved or not. On the other hand, the way of thinking of indirect consequentialist, which include motive consequentialist, virtue consequentialist, and rule consequentialist, is different. Let's talk about them separately. Motive consequentialist assess a certain act based on the consequences of motive. And in addition, for virtue consequentialists, the act is considered to be morally right if it comes from the state of character which maximizes positive consequences. And lastly, rule consequentialists evaluate the actions based on the consequences of the rule. To make it clear, their analysis is based on the scenario when everyone or all the people breaks the rules. Furthermore, consequentialists can introduce the idea of agent relativity in their analysis, and it means that the act is analyzed from the perspective of agent as well. In our case, the situation is considered from the perspective of doctor who will kill one patient in order to save five. And the case can be complicated with different scenario. For example, one scenario can be situations of five patients were caused by the lack of professionalism of the doctor. And in conclusion, from my point of view, the other factor which should be also analyzed is the ways that the five patients are law-abiding persons that brings the benefits to the society or not. If all of them are criminals, killing one innocent law-abiding persons will not be morally right. No, my groupmate will talk about limiting the demands of morality and arguments for consequentialism.
Hello everyone. Utilitarianism demands too much because it requires us to do acts that are or should be moral options. In the language of utilitarians, we should choose the option that maximizes utility. Action or policy that produces the largest amount of good. Utilitarianism theory is complex because we cannot understand single principle unless we know who's good, individuals or groups that we should aim to maximize. When individuals are deciding what to do for themselves, they only consider their own utility. For example, if you want an ice cream, utilitarian theory says that you should choose the flavor that will make you the happier, let's say. And people often need to judge what's good, not only for themselves, for other individuals, but also for groups. For example, families, friends, religious groups, and countries. And to illustrate this method, let's say that you go to the party and you need to buy an ice cream. There are 10 people, like they will attend here, and you need to choose the flavor. There are two flavors, chocolate and vanilla. Utilitarian view says that you should choose the flavor that will make the most of the group, let's say, happier. And in this case, for example, if 7 people like chocolate and 3 people like vanilla, then of course you should choose the chocolate one. According to satisficing consequentialism, it's not morally wrong to fail to contribute to a charity if one contributes to other charities and the time or money that one could contribute does create enough good. So it's not just wasted. A related position is progressive consequentialism, which holds that we morally ought to make the world a better place than it would be if we did nothing, but we don't have to improve it as much as we can. Consequentialists also might be supported by deductive arguments from abstract moral institutions. Sidgwick seemed to think that the principle of utilities follows from the very general self-evident principles, including universalizability. If an act ought to be done, then the other act resembles it in all respects also ought to be done. The rationality is that one ought to aim at the general good, not in the particular part of the good. And equality is that good of anyone is not more important than the other, any person. And that was all about our presentation. Thank you for your attention.